Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going back in time to 19th century Baltimore to unpack a true historical mystery full of twists and turns and honestly a lot of drama. We'll be using excerpts from a historical fiction novel called The Grays of Truth by Sharon Virts to guide our investigation.
This deep dive is so fascinating because the novel is based on real events. It gives us a look into a past full of secrets.
Right.
We'll follow our protagonist, Jane,
Okay.
a woman who wants to find the truth behind a series of suspicious deaths,
Yes.
even when no one around her believes her.
Now imagine, post-Civil War America, a society that's changing,
Yeah.
dealing with change and holding on to tradition. This is the world Jane lives in, a world where what society expected, especially from women, could be really limiting.
And that context is really important to understanding Jane's struggles. She's a skilled nurse who learned to use castor beans for birth control.
Wow.
A secret her father taught her, this knowledge, is a double-edged sword. It gives her power, but also makes her suspicious when her friend Rebecca Ketchum dies.
Oh, wow. Under mysterious circumstances.
Okay, so Rebecca's death is ruled as peritonitis. But Jane taught Rebecca the castor bean method.
Right.
And she suspects something isn't right. And it's even more suspicious because the doctor, Dr. Barnes, seems to be helping cover up the real cause of death. Why would a well-respected doctor do that? What could they be hiding?
That's a great question. That takes us right to the heart of this mystery. Is this just a tragic accident? Or is there something darker going on? And remember, Jane's trying to figure all of this out in a society where women's voices, especially about medicine, were ignored or even dismissed.
And then another tragedy hits when Jane's own husband, Ned, dies, under suspicious circumstances as well. But this time it's not just grief that haunts Jane.
Right.
She finds strange financial dealings and tension between Ned and his brother Hank.
And that tension, it turns out it's because of a debt. Hank owes a lot of money to his dead brother Ned. This changes things. Could financial pressure make someone go to such extremes? It's a question that looms over the whole investigation. And then, as if things couldn't get worse, Jane and her daughter, Mary Louise, get very sick after drinking tea made by Ellen, Hank's wife. Mary Louise dies from the illness, and Jane barely survives.
This is a major turning point.
Yeah.
Jane believes they were poisoned, but people say she's hysterical.
Wow.
She's seen as an unstable woman who's grieving, and no one takes her accusations seriously. Imagine that frustration, feeling trapped in a nightmare and no one believes you.
It's heartbreaking. Jane's dealing with grief and suspicion,
Yeah.
but also the threat of being called insane
Yeah.
and put in an asylum. It shows how biased society was against her,
Yeah.
where a woman's grief can be used against her.
Yeah. It really shows how hard it was for Jane to find justice, but she doesn't give up. She wants to find the truth, so she digs deeper into the family relationships and the financial ties that connect them all.
And as she investigates,
Yeah.
the details of Hank's death come out. Remember, people thought he died naturally, but Jane finds out that before he died, Hank had this weird rash, just like Ned and Mary Louise.
And that makes her even more suspicious.
It's like there's a pattern, this creepy connection between all these deaths that seem separate. But just as Jane's getting somewhere, another problem comes up. Octavia, Hank's daughter, accuses Jane of doing something inappropriate with Hank's body.
This accusation really hurts Jane's reputation. Octavia is resentful, and she's manipulating the situation. It plays into all the prejudices against Jane, making her look crazy and vengeful. It's a setback for her. But luckily, Jane has someone on her side.
Right. Her sister-in-law, Oxa, steps in to help clear Jane's name.
Right.
Oxa asks Captain Jake Frey for help. He's a new police captain. They brought him in to clean up Baltimore's corrupt police department.
Captain Frey is an interesting character. He's an outsider, a reformer who's never been a police officer before. Not having experience could be good or bad. On the one hand, he might see things differently because he's not part of the department's corrupt past. But on the other hand, will he be able to handle this complicated case? With all the rumors and social pressure and powerful people involved?
Yeah, it's a risk trusting someone new like that. And while the investigation is starting to make progress, Jane finds herself attracted to Scott Ketchum, Hank's brother, a respected general. Talk about complicated.
It's a surprise. In the middle of all this grief and suspicion and trying to find the truth, love blooms. It seems Scott can see past the rumors, and he recognizes Jane's strength.
Yeah, it's a little bit of hope, a chance for Jane to find some happiness in all the darkness. But of course, this is a deep dive into a true mystery, so there are more twists and turns. Tragically, Scott dies suddenly after having some drinks at Ellen's house.
And this time it's clear. The autopsy says he was poisoned
Hmm.
with antimony.
Wow.
Suspicion falls on Ellen, especially since she's connected to the other deaths. But remember, Ellen is smart.
Yeah.
She's good at manipulating people and making them think she's innocent.
She's gotten away with it before,
Yeah.
hiding behind this image of respectability. But now there's proof of poisoning, so it seems like justice might finally be served. The case goes to trial, and the courtroom becomes a battleground of different stories and hidden motives.
It's intense. Jane testifies. She wants to prove Ellen is guilty.
Right.
But then a surprise witness shows up. Eliza Chubb, Scott's secretary. And it turns out, his mistress. Eliza says Jane was jealous and unstable, obsessed with Scott, and that hurts Jane's credibility even more.
It's a cruel twist, a classic example of how society's bias against women can be used to twist the truth. And unfortunately, it works. The jury doesn't have enough proof to connect Ellen directly to the poison, and they believe the different stories. So they find her not guilty.
It's a huge blow for Jane. She tried so hard, but it seems like justice won't be served. Ellen will walk free, leaving behind so many unanswered questions and broken lives.
It feels like such a loss after everything Jane's been through. But then when we think the truth is going to stay hidden, we get this crazy twist.
Yeah, just when we think it's over, there's this twist that changes everything. It comes from a confession, but not from who you'd think. Oh, really?
Octavia, Hank's daughter, confesses.
Whoa. She admits to all the poisonings.
Yep.
Wow. It's crazy. Octavia's been in the background this whole time. And now she's the mastermind behind it all. But why? Why would she do that?
Her confession tells this sad story. A life of being manipulated and resented. She says her family, the Whartons, used her to climb the social ladder.
Wow.
She was just a tool to them. They never really loved her. So what she did, as horrible as it is, was her way of trying to get some control back, to hurt the people who hurt her.
It makes you realize that even in families, there can be these dark secrets and resentment. Octavia was pushed to the edge, and she became this unlikely force of destruction, trying to get her own twisted kind of justice.
And here's another truth that comes out. Ellen knew about Octavia's crimes all along, and she covered them up. She chose to protect her daughter, no matter what. Ellen's perfect image is shattered. She's not innocent at all. She's manipulative, and she helped her daughter get away with murder.
It's a tangled web of motives. Ellen, the seemingly respectable widow, turns out to be a master manipulator, willing to sacrifice innocent lives to protect her daughter. It makes you question everything we thought we knew about these characters and their relationships.
For sure. And it gets even more twisted. Ellen ends up dead too. Murdered by Octavia in a fit of rage, driven mad by guilt and resentment, Octavia becomes a victim of her own poisonous anger.
What a sad and disturbing end to this whole story. Octavia is declared insane and committed to an asylum. She becomes a symbol of how destructive secrets can be and the awful things that can happen when ambition and resentment go unchecked.
And Jane. After all that loss and fighting for the truth, she's left with this bittersweet feeling the truth is out. But at a huge cost, the case is closed. But it leaves behind a lot of broken lives and unanswered questions. It really shows that sometimes the truth, even though it's important, doesn't bring peace or healing. And it highlights how complex people are, the darkness that can hide beneath a nice surface, how ambition can lead to terrible things, and the extreme lengths people will go to protect themselves and the ones they love.
The Grays of Truth, even though it's fiction, gives us this really interesting look into the past, a time when women were especially held back by society. It reminds us that even though things have changed a lot, and we value women's voices more now, there are still traces of that old bias around today.
The deep dive has been a wild ride. We've seen shocking betrayals, the dark side of human nature, and how hard it can be to find the truth when things aren't always what they seem.
It's definitely been a journey, and I think it's important to remember that even though The Grays of Truth is set in the past, the themes it explores, trust, betrayal, ambition, the fight for justice, are things we still deal with today.
That's so true. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's what I want you to take away. Trust your gut. Question what you think you know. And don't dismiss even the smallest details. Sometimes the tiniest clue can unlock a much bigger truth.
Yeah, and remember, the truth, like life itself, is rarely simple. It's complicated and layered, and sometimes more gray than we want to believe.
That's a great point to end on. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop searching for the truth, no matter how complicated or hard to find it seems.